Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and now we're at the end of 2024. It's become a kind of tradition here on the channel where year after year we look to the year ahead for Disney and do a kind of guide to video. And so that's what this is going to be. It's going to be the guide to Disney in 2025. And the way I want to structure this for today is that I'm going to focus in on talking about the Disney parks, Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, all of that sort of stuff at the first half of the video. And then the second half of the video, I'm going to talk about the Disney movies that are going to be released in 2025 as well. So that's how I'm going to structure it. And so with that being said, let's begin. And actually where I want to start is not to talk about the official openings at the Disney parks, but I think it's also very important to talk about the closures that are going to take place in 2025 as well to make way for construction to begin. And so the first thing I've got on the list here is January 6th, 2025 is when Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Walt Disney World is going to be closing for a lengthy refurbishment, which means that if you want one last ride on the wildest ride in the wilderness at Walt Disney World, January 5th is going to be the last day to ride Big Thunder Mountain before this lengthy refurbishment. Now, obviously it's going to be reopening again, but it's supposedly going to be closed throughout the rest of 2025 and into early 2026. And the reason why it's that period of time is that this is going to be an extensive refurbishment, and the rumours indicate that they're going to be opting to do a complete retrack of the roller coaster track for the attraction. So this is just maintenance that is typical for, roller coasters like Big Thunder Mountain that are decades old. We saw Disney do something very similar to this back in 2014 with the Disneyland version of Big Thunder Mountain. And so this is for some general maintenance on the track, but at the same time, they're also going to be adding some new special effects. So when it reopens, it should have the explosion dynamite effect that you've already seen in the Disneyland and Disneyland Paris version of Big Thunder Mountain. That should hopefully finally be coming to the Walt Disney World version of Big Thunder Mountain as well when it eventually reopens, which is looking like it's going to be early 2026. So important date there. January 5th is your last date to ride Big Thunder Mountain for pretty much all of 2025 at Walt Disney World. Then the next date is January the 13th. And we've got to move on over to Animal Kingdom, as that's the date when Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama section of Dinoland USA is going to be closed. So that means January 12th is your last day to go into Dinoland USA and see Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama, ride Triceratops Spin, play the carnival games and say one last goodbye to that whole section of Animal Kingdom, as from January 13th onwards it's going to be walled off. So that's an important date there. Now, the reason why they're doing it in this way, obviously we know that Tropical Americas is coming to this corner of the park and is going to be replacing all of Dinoland eventually, but where Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama sits is where the new show building for the big Encanto attraction that they're going to be building from the ground up. So that's going to take more time to construct, so they're going to need to close this part earlier. And then where this leaves Dinosaur is that Disney has actually made it official that Dinosaur is going to remain open throughout all of 2025. So they've said it in a Parks blog article, so you'll have one last chance to ride Dinosaur throughout all of 2025 and catch that dino before the whole land goes extinct, ready for Tropical Americas in 2027. Now, I expect Dinosaur to close sometime in 2026 to begin its transformation into the Indiana Jones attraction that's going to be replacing it. So that's where we're at in terms of Dinoland USA and the closure there. Then over in Disneyland, February 8th, 2025 is your last date to be able to go ride Red Car Trolley at Disney California Adventure. Now, this is going to be closing for good, and the reason for this is where the Red Car Trolley goes backstage and where it's maintained in the backstage barn back there is actually located where the Avengers Campus expansion is going to go at DCA. So they're going to be expanding off into that direction over there, and as part of it, they're going to need to demolish the backstage component for Red Car Trolley. So Red Car Trolley is going to be discontinued as well, and they're going to begin construction on Infinity Defense, the major e-ticket ride for Avengers Campus, and also the Stark Flight Lab attraction for Avengers Campus as well in 2025 after February 8th. Then we move into more vague kind of dates here. Likely spring of 2025 is when Tom Sawyer Island and Rivers of America at the Magic Kingdom is going to be closed. Now, we don't have a hard date for this yet, and the reason for that is It's kind of a moving target at the moment, as originally they were looking for earlier in 2025, but the South Florida Water Management District permit, the management district came back and wanted more information about their plans, and Disney's asked for an extension for giving that information, which means that the 60-day extension puts it at February 1st for when they can respond, and so I reckon it's going to be roughly around spring of 2025 that we'll see Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island close for good. So if you want one last goodbye to Rivers of America, make sure you go over there early in 2025 and say your goodbyes to Rivers of America, as it's obviously going to begin its transformation and its construction into the new Cars attraction for Frontierland, and then also Villains Land, which is going to be built back there as well, which I'm very excited about and ready to see in the Magic Kingdom. Then also sometime in 2025, we don't have an exact date for this yet either, but Disney has said that construction is going to begin on the Monsters Inc. Monstropolis, Monsters Inc. Land door coaster at Hollywood Studios in 2025. Now, we don't know if it's going to be the first half, the second half of the year, but sometime in 2025, work's going to begin, which also means that Muppets Courtyard and Muppet Vision 3D is likely to have its goodbye and last show at Hollywood Studios, at least where it currently is, in 2025. And because Muppets are also going to be moving on over to Rock and Roller Coaster, that also means that we'll likely be saying goodbye to Rock and Roller Coaster in 2025 at some point as well. So we don't have exact dates yet, but in 2025, we're going to see a lot of moving pieces, moving components here at Disney's Hollywood Studios to keep an eye out for in terms of news announcements. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Instagram. Obviously, subscribe here on YouTube, and I'll deliver you the latest in terms of the news when it happens. But now we've dealt with the closures of things that are on the horizon, let's now talk about what's officially going to be opening in terms of the Disney parks in 2025. And I'm going to begin by talking about Walt Disney World and try and do it chronologically throughout the year here. So first of all, at Walt Disney World, spring 2025 is when the Spaceship Earth Lounge, the bar that they're building in that old Siemens sponsor lounge that overlooks World Celebration and World Showcase Lagoon, is going to be opening in spring of 2025. And this whole lounge thing that was announced back at D23 in August, it will have phenomenal views of the nighttime spectaculars at Epcot, and it's going to have great views of World Celebration as well. But in many ways, I think this is kind of a replacement or a substitute for the removal of the rooftop bar that they had in the original plans for the Epcot transformation that were announced back in 2019. And that whole area up there, no great surprise, it's coming together fairly fast, as it was the former sponsor lounge for Siemens, which was the former sponsor of Spaceship Earth, and it already has a lot of the infrastructure that they need up there for a bar and lounge for guests. So they just need to do some interior work on the actual lounge to make it ready for the guests in spring of 2025. And then the next thing is a big one, and it's been something I've been talking about here on the channel for a long time, and that is a nighttime parade returning to Walt Disney World, a brand new nighttime parade that is, and it's called Disney Starlight Dream the Night Away, and this is going to be debuting in summer of 2025 at the Magic Kingdom. And as we can see in the concept art you can see on the screen now, it's going to be led by the Blue Fairy from Pinocchio, who's going to use her transformative starlight magic that you see in the movie. That will be the narrative thread that feeds into each of the floats and costumes in the parade to illuminate them and bring them to life in this new nighttime parade. Now, they've said that it's going to be building on the heritage of the Main Street Electrical Parade and things like that, but the logo they've released for this Starlight Parade, I think, is very reminiscent of the Spectrum Magic logo, which was a nighttime parade that a lot of people loved at Magic Kingdom. And throughout the parade, we're going to see floats for Pinocchio, Peter Pan, Encanto, Frozen, Moana. There's going to be a bunch more, but we haven't had them all listed yet. But these are the floats we know of in this parade so far. So summer of 2025, Disney Starlight is going to debut at Walt Disney World. Then Also in summer of 2025, we've got Disney Villains Unfairly Ever After, which is a new show coming to the Sunset Showcase Theatre at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And this live show is going to feature Cruella de Vil, Captain Hook and Maleficent on stage live and in person as they break through the glass to take that centre stage spot there. And then they're also going to be joined by a whole cast of characters and other Disney villains that will show up, but through what Disney's calling magical mirrors, which is another way of saying that they're going to appear on screen in the show as well. So the ones that will actually be performing on stage are going to be Cruella de Vil, Captain Hook and Maleficent for this Disney Villains show, which opens in summer of 2025. Then also in Hollywood Studios, The Little Mermaid show, a musical adventure, is also going to be debuting in the summer of 2025, and this is a refreshed version of the Voyage of a Little Mermaid show that debuted in 1992, so a long time it ran in Hollywood Studios, and this is going to have all the latest advancements in terms of puppetry and stagecraft and special effects and lighting for this new version of Little Mermaid, which is based on the animated classic from 1989 for this Little Mermaid, a musical adventure show at Hollywood Studios. Then in Epcot, as we move into late summer 2025, that is when Disney has said the revamped test track is going to be reopening, and this is kind of like Test Track 3.0 at this point, and this is the version that was announced back at Destination D23 in 2023, and it was said that they're going to be taking more inspiration from World of Motion, which was an opening day attraction for Epcot from 1982, and then eventually around late 90s it was replaced with Test Track. Now, this version of Test Track is going to be presented by General Motors instead of Chevrolet. So it's the same company, but they're changing the attraction sponsor name to General Motors, which is also a little reference back to World of Motion, as World of Motion was sponsored by General Motors as well. And it's going to be culminating in a scenic outdoor environment that will be reminding us all of the joys of driving. And this is going to be a complete redo of the interior of the building. So gone is that kind of Tron-esque neon light theming within the building here, but it looks like they're going to be making more references back to World of Motion. Personally, I just really hope that they bring back the original theme song from World of Motion and integrate that within Test Track somehow, whether it be on the car radio or, you know, towards the end of the attraction, some way bring back that Fun to Be Free song within the actual attraction. I think that'd be a great way to just reference back to World of Motion. Then as we move into late 2025, the Pirates of the Caribbean inspired tavern is going to be opening at the Magic Kingdom. Now, this is being built in the former location of where the Pirates League used to be, which is kind of sandwiched between the entrance of Pirates of the Caribbean and then the gift shop at the end. That's where Pirates League used to be, and they're actually expanding the footprint of Pirates League and they're building it out. So the gift shop's going to become a little bit smaller, and they're building an extra room here for this Pirates Tavern. And the reason why this might be a big deal is because it hasn't been said officially, but reading between the lines, it's a tavern and it's got pirates, so you'd assume that there might be some alcoholic drinks offered on the menu as well, which they've never had at Magic Kingdom before without it being a sit-down table service restaurant like Be Our Guest. But if they are going to be having alcoholic drinks, which hasn't been confirmed yet, then I reckon this is going to be very much like Ogre's Cantina over at Disneyland and also Hollywood Studios, where it's a reservation-only kind of system where you can't just walk up, grab a drink and leave and walk around the park like you can do in Epcot, but instead you'll have to go inside the premises, stay within the premises, have your drink within the tavern, and then leave. And there'll probably be a drink limit as well of how much you can order. But personally, I'm a big fan of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's my favourite attraction at any of the parks, so just seeing more Pirates of the Caribbean within the parks, I think is a massive benefit. And then moving on into winter of 2025, this is when the Zootopia Better Zoogether show is going to be debuting at Animal Kingdom's Tree of Life Theatre. Now, this is also going to see the removal of It's Tough to Be a Bug at Animal Kingdom. Now, I'm sad to see this one go because Tough to Be a Bug for me, I think still a great show. It just needs a little bit of maintenance on the animatronic flick and maybe Hopper as well, and just remaster the movie maybe into 4K, but I think it's a fantastic show. It still pulls crowds in, but they're replacing it with Better Zoogether, which is a Zootopia theme show. Personally, I don't really know how that works thematically from having these anthropomorphic animals underneath the Tree of Life, and that theatre is also very highly themed to Tough to Be a Bug. So with this opening in winter of 2025, that could be December 2025, or it could even be January of 2026. Winter does extend into the next year. So at some point in 2025, we're going to see the closure of Tough to Be a Bug. And I'm sad about that because this is the last Tough to Be a Bug to close. The one over at California Venture closed to make way for Avengers Campus, and now this one's closing. That means that all Bugs Life representation within the parks has kind of ceased to exist now after this closes. So I'm hoping that this is just like a temporary redo and they might bring Tough to Be a Bug back, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with this. In the artwork, it seems like they're going to be putting a new animatronic in place. So if they do that, it's going to be a permanent fixture within this thing. Or, personally, it might be a way of just capitalizing upon Zootopia 2 coming out in 2025 as well, and, you know, adding a bit of a boost to this attraction. But either way, that's also something to keep an eye out on as well. Then, also in 2025, for those Disney Vacation Club members, in Frontierland, there's going to be a new DVC lounge called McKim's Mile House, and this is going to be located where the former shooting gallery arcade was, and it's going to be inspired by the boarding houses of the American West, and it's named after the Disney legend and Imagineer Sam McKim. So McKim's Mile House as a new DVC lounge within Magic Kingdom as well in 2025. And then let's move on over to Disneyland, as it's going to be a big year for Disneyland, as it's the 70th anniversary of the Disneyland Resort in 2025. And although the official anniversary date is July 17th, 2025, the festivities and the celebration begins on May 16th, 2025, and that's when the official 70th anniversary is going to begin, and it's going to run through to middle of 2026, supposedly. So it's a good year-long celebration anniversary for the 70th of Disneyland. Now, the biggest thing to note here is that the Walt Disney Animatronic is going to be debuting on May 16th, 2025 at the Disneyland Resort. And this is as part of Walt Disney A Magical Life, which is a brand new show that Imagineering has put together that will be at the Main Street Opera House, which is where Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln is. And this is going to be an audio animatronic figure of Walt Disney, which is something I've been wanting to see Disney do for many years. And apparently, you know, this is going to be the most advanced audio animatronic figure that Disney's ever made with Walt Disney here. And they've said that they're going to be using new methods to animate Walt's hands and fingers to make them more nuanced and lifelike in their mannerisms. There's going to be new techniques to create the skin texture for the animatronic figure. And there will be special lighting to bring out, you know, kind of like a twinkle in the eyes to make them seem more lifelike. And so Disney know that a lot is going to be riding on this animatronic. They really need to deliver in a big way. And I don't think that they would have commissioned it unless they knew the animatronic technology was where it needed to be for this animatronic figure. So I'm very excited to see this Walt Disney animatronic at Disneyland, and Walt return to Disneyland in many ways. And the attraction's going to feature a cinematic presentation to begin with, all about Walt Disney's journey, which will then culminate in a visit in Walt's office, with Walt's own words from archival recordings then being remastered for the best audio quality. So Walt will be speaking with his own words. It's not AI, it's nothing like that. They're going to be using his own words for this attraction. So you'll be hearing directly from the man himself in his own words. And for those who are worried about Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, it will be coming back, but this Walt Disney Magical Life is going to be an exclusive run, so that will be operating probably throughout all of the 70th anniversary. And then in 2026, when the 70th anniversary begins to wrap up, that's when the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln show will come back and be in rotation with this Walt Disney show. So they'll be running every half an hour, probably one show or the other. And I think that's also going to be perfect timing, as if they bring back the Lincoln show for 2026, that is the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. So they can celebrate it as being the return of President Abraham Lincoln in that show for the 250th anniversary of the United States of America there at Disneyland. Then in terms of the rest of the 70th anniversary, with Disneyland being known as the happiest place on earth, the theme of the anniversary is happiness. And we can see here with a new castle overlay for Sleeping Beauty Castle, and they're going to have a brand new version of World of Colour called Happiness that will explore the emotion of happiness through a kaleidoscope of emotions hosted by joy and the other emotions from inside out. And this is going to feature music from Tangled, Encanto, Frozen, The Lion King, Turning Red, and even a Goofy movie as well is going to be featured within this World of Colour show. Other notable entertainment offerings for the 70th anniversary is that Paint the Night Parade is going to be returning to the Disneyland Park, and Wondrous Journeys, the nighttime spectacular, will be returning for the 70th anniversary as well. And Better Together, a Pixar Pals Celebration Parade, will be returning to California Adventure for the 70th anniversary of the Disneyland Resort. Then, as we move over to Disneyland Paris on January 10th, 2025, right around the corner now, Disney Tales of Magic, which is a brand new castle nighttime show, will be debuting on January 10th. And this is going to be a 20-minute long show that will journey through a myriad of beloved tales such as Pinocchio, Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, Lilo and Stitch, Encanto, Toy Story, Inside Out, and even WALL-E, which is music to my ears. I think that WALL-E doesn't get nearly enough representation at the Disney parks. And for the first time at Disneyland Paris, they're also going to be integrating Main Street projection mapping to bring the whole show down Main Street USA as well. And they're going to be implementing 60 brand new ultra powerful lighting fixtures, 15 ultra bright lasers, synchronized fountains, pyrotechnics, and also drones will be used within the show as well to bring it to life in the sky. So they're throwing everything at this show, and if you want to see kind of a future of nighttime spectaculars at the domestic parks in the US, look to Disneyland Paris, as they're often kind of pioneering a lot of the stuff over in Disneyland Paris. Now, another thing to mention here for Disneyland Paris is the Walt Disney Studios Park. The name change should be happening in 2025 as well, formally. And that should be happening at the same time as Studio One, which is the first building you walk through in that park, reopens as World Premiere. And so that will likely mark the official rededication of the park as Disney Adventure World, and it seems like that might be in spring or summer of 2025, but we'll see when that opens as well. Then the last thing in terms of the Disney parks is Disney Destiny, which is a brand new cruise ship, is going to be setting sail in November of 2025, and this is going to be featuring heroes and villains as the theme for this ship. And it's going to have things on board such as a Cruella de Vil themed piano bar lounge, a Lion King dinner show, and also a Broadway style production of Disney Hercules. Now, that's what we know of this ship so far. I'm guessing early on in 2025, we'll get a big news cycle of announcements for the Disney Destiny of all the other things that will be on board the ship as well. And so that wraps up all of the Disney Parks segment. Now let's move into movies. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through the movies, give you the dates, give a quick synopsis of each one of the movies, and I'm also going to give my prediction of what I reckon these movies might do in terms of box office return, in terms of how much money they might make at the worldwide box office when their run is through. And the first one on the list here is February the 14th, 2025. We've got Captain America Brave New World, which will be in theatres. And this will see Sam Wilson find himself in the middle of an international incident after meeting with President Ross, who will be played by Harrison Ford, joining the MCU there. And it will follow Sam Wilson as he soon discovers the reason behind a nefarious global plot before the true mastermind has the entire world seeing red. Now, the reference to red there is because Harrison Ford is going to be playing Thunderbolt Ross, and in the comics, Thunderbolt Ross is also known as Red Hulk. So we'll be seeing red because Red Hulk is going to be the major character within this Captain America movie, the major antagonist most likely within this Captain America movie. So be very interesting to see Harrison Ford within the MCU, and I reckon that this one's going to do roughly around $750 million at the global worldwide box office. And then on March 21st, 2025, we've got Snow White released into theatres. And this is the live-action remake of the 1937 animated classic and Walt Disney's first ever feature-length animated movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And with this movie, you know, there's been quite a lot of controversy surrounding it in the news over the past couple of years, and Disney has chosen to release this theatrically, which I think a better move would have been to put this on Disney Plus and just give it to the subscribers on Disney Plus, let it be a little bit like Pinocchio. They put that on Disney Plus as well, the Robert Zemeckis Pinocchio movie. Now, personally, I think that this is going to make roughly 250 to 300 million at the global box office, but we'll see what they do with Snow White, as they're going to be putting a lot of money into the marketing for this movie as well. So they're choosing to release it theatrically. We'll see how that plays out. And then we move on to the next big release of 2025, and that's May 2nd, 2025, Thunderbolts, which is a new Marvel movie that comes out. I reckon this one will do surprisingly well. I reckon this will make around $500 to $600 million at the worldwide box office. Mainly the reason why I'm not giving it a higher number is because a lot of people aren't that familiar with a lot of these characters. They've kind of been shown in a lot of the Disney Plus series, or they've featured in like Black Widow and stuff like that, but they've never had their own individual movie. It's not a franchise that, you know, is being built upon. It's a franchise that's starting. And the synopsis for this is that Yelena, US Agent, Ghost, and Taskmaster are going to be sent by Vel to kill somebody in a vault. And in the course of doing so, they realise that they've been set up and they were meant to die on this mission. So that's the synopsis for this movie. I think it's going to do quite well for Marvel, and I think it'll be a sleeper hit in many ways. Then the next one, May 23rd, 2025, Lilo and Stitch, the live-action remake of this 2002 animated movie, is going to come out, and I reckon that this is going to blow away all expectations with this movie. I think that this is going to make $1 billion at the worldwide box office. There's a lot of love for the Lilo and Stitch animated movie that's built up over the last 20 years, and I think a lot of people are going to want to go out and see this one. I think it's going to be a bit like Disney's Aladdin when it came out in 2019. It made over $1 billion, that did, and I think Lilo and Stitch might do the same kind of numbers here. So I reckon this will be a big one for Disney. $1 billion, I reckon that's my prediction for the Lilo and Stitch live-action remake of this movie. June 13th, 2025, Pixar's next movie called Elio is going to be released, and this follows Elio as an underdog with an active imagination who finds himself inadvertently beamed up to the Communiverse, an interplanetary organization with representatives from galaxies far and wide, and he's mistakenly identified as Earth's ambassador to the rest of the universe, and he starts to form new bonds while discovering who he's truly meant to be. Now, when it comes to these Pixar movies that are originals and not part of a sequel, they don't typically do as well. So I reckon that this is going to make roughly around $400 to $500 million at the worldwide box office. But it's all going to depend on the early word of mouth for this movie and the reviews for it, and see if it can carry that same kind of momentum that Elemental did in 2023, as that did finish out around $500 million at the worldwide box office. So it was still a success from that sort of standpoint, and I think Elio might do the same thing as Elemental here. Then on July 25th, 2025, the Fantastic Four: First Steps by Marvel will be released, and this is going to see Vanessa Kirby as Susan Storm, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach as Ben Grimm, the Thing, and Ralph Ineson will be playing Galactus, who will be the main villain of the movie. And this is probably going to make a ton of money at the worldwide box office. I reckon it will make easily $1 billion, because the Fantastic Four as a franchise is a big name, and people have been waiting to see what, you know, the MCU do with the Fantastic Four. So I reckon this is going to be a big one, and Disney probably already know that as well. And we don't have an official synopsis for the movie, but the fact it's got Galactus in it, that's a big villain within the Marvel comics, and they're introducing that within the MCU. So a big deal all around. Then on August 8th, we've got Freakier Friday, which is a sequel to the 2003 Disney remake of Freaky Friday, and this will see Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis reprise their roles for this movie. Now, personally, I'm kind of surprised that Disney's going to be releasing this one theatrically. I feel like this might be more of a Disney Plus play, as we saw with Hocus Pocus 2. They put that on Disney Plus, as I feel like Hocus Pocus had more of a fan community built around it than Freaky Friday did, but we'll see how this one goes. Then on October 10th, 2025, Tron Ares comes out into theatres, and this movie, which is the third installment in the Tron franchise, is going to follow a highly sophisticated program called Ares, who is sent from the digital world into the real world this time around on a dangerous mission. So it's Tron coming into the real world, marking humankind's first encounter with AI beings. And this stars Jared Leto, Evan Peters and Jeff Bridges, obviously from the original Tron movie, coming into this third installment for Tron Ares. And I think there's quite a community built around the Tron franchise, and I reckon this will probably make around $400 million at the worldwide box office, maybe $500 million, depending on how it was marketed and the reviews for the movie as well. Then we've got the last two movies of the year for Disney. The first one is Zootopia 2, which is going to be released on November 26th, 2025, and this will follow detectives Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde going on an undercover case in Marsh Market when they then find themselves on the twisting trail of a mysterious reptile. And this will see Jennifer Goodwin reprise her role as Judy Hopps, Jason Bateman as Nick Wilde, Ki-Hu Kwan as Gary, most likely the reptile that they'll be chasing, and Shakira will be reprising her role as Gazelle, and is going to be writing new music for this movie as well, which is released around Thanksgiving of 2025. And this one will probably make $1 billion at the worldwide box office. Zootopia, the original movie, did. It's really the foreign international markets that carried Zootopia to that figure, but with it being a sequel as well, it'll probably make $1 billion for Disney, Zootopia 2 there. And then the last movie of the year for Disney's theatrical releases is December 19th, 2025, Avatar 3, Fire and Ash will be released. Now, there's no official synopsis for this movie that's been released as of yet, but it's said that it's going to be exploring the themes of the cynical nature of violence, where fire represents hatred and anger, and ash signifies the aftermath and grief and loss that come from future conflict. And so this is going to be dealing in much darker themes of war taking place on Pandora within this movie, and James Cameron has described the movie as being harrowing, and so therefore this third one's probably a very critical movie to watch in the franchise here. But I reckon that this Fire and Ash movie will make roughly $1.5 to $2 billion, probably at the worldwide box office. We saw Way of Water released in 2022 make a ton of money, made billions at the box office. I think Fire and Ash, pretty much certain that it will make easily into the billions range at the box office here. But that's everything that I think is particularly noteworthy that Disney's got coming up in 2025. But now it's over to you, the Waltineers, as I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on Disney in 2025? What are you most looking forward to in terms of the Disney parks in 2025? And which movie are you most looking forward to coming out in 2025 as well? And if you're new to this channel, be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, check out the rest of the videos on this channel. And I'd also like to say a massive thank you to the official Waltineer Club over on Patreon for supporting this channel and helping keep everything going here. And also a massive shout out to the Waltineer Gold members that you can see here on the screen, as well as Waltineer Diamond members JC Russell, Justin Tupper and Tim Parsons. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.